start. That's what we want to hear.
Mhm.
We cannot become what we want by remaining what we are. A quote by Max Dupree, an American businessman and leadership author. The quote emphasizes mindset, evolution, and purposeful change, aligning perfectly with my guest message today. But before I introduce her, I believe you don't have to doggedly follow a course of action that is not serving you. Making a rational decision to change direction is sensible and can turn out to be the best move ever. But it's difficult to transform, and it helps when you have people to guide you. I know that I use my skills now that I developed in the travel industry, education, event management, community building, real estate, international relocation, and small business. And it's equipped me to with know-how and 2 ears, 1 mouth, and a big heart to help you turn your tentative steps into confident strides. So today we're going to explore what it takes not just to succeed, but to evolve through change, challenge, and the chapters we don't always see coming. Today's guest is someone who has the power of resilience, reinvention, and the sharp use of transferable skills. She's an author, keynote speaker, expert witness agency founder, advocate for women's advancement, and a powerful voice on financial literacy and career adaptability. Welcome, Antoinette.
Thanks, Kerryn. Thank you.
Antoinette Colbran is the founder of Benchmark Experts, a leading agency providing expert witness opinions in personal injury law. She's the author of Great Handbag, Don't Forget Your Briefcase, a keynote speaker who's addressed thousands from high school students to corporate boards, and an MC and facilitator known for her clarity, warmth, and practical wisdom. Her leadership includes chairing the MacDonald College of Performing Arts, serving as the New South Wales President of Women's Chiefs of Enterprise International, and being a proud member of groups with the Australian Lawyers Alliance and Future Women. Antoinette, what a lot of skills you've developed over the time, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today.
Right. Yeah, me too.
Your sound's not working. The buds actually don't, the plugs seem to muck it up.
Shame. It's funny because I can hear you. I can hear you well.
Yeah, but I had to record somebody else's 3 times because the buds messed it up. It was better when she just spoke.
Okay, I'll change the audio then.
Yeah, that's better.
Is it already?
Yeah.
I haven't changed yet. Maybe it's my moving.
Yeah, maybe.
Is that clear now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's
So
go.
sit still.
Let's go. Yeah, I'll sit still. That could be it. It could be because they're charged. They should be okay.
Yeah, it was terrible with the one that I forgot to record, and we had a great conversation, and then we recorded it again, and we had shocking internet, and then we recorded it again, and it was once you took the earplugs out at the end, it was better. Yeah.
Just let me know, even if you put your hand up or something, let me know, Kerryn, and I'll switch just to the laptop. But for the moment, I can hear you well as well. So I'll try and be still.
Okay. So I might go back to this. A powerful voice on financial literacy and career adaptability. Welcome, Antoinette.
Thanks, Kerryn. I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah, so it dropped out again at the beginning of that sentence, and then it was okay.
Right. Thanks, Kerryn. I'm really pleased to be here.
Perfect. Antoinette Colbran is the founder of Benchmark Experts, a leading agency providing expert witness opinions in personal injury law. She's the author of Great Handbag, Don't Forget Your Briefcase, a keynote speaker who's addressed thousands from high school students to corporate boards, and an MC and a facilitator known for her clarity, warmth, and practical wisdom. Antoinette's leadership includes chairing the MacDonald College of Performing Arts, serving as the New South Wales President of Women's Chiefs of Enterprise International, and being a proud member of groups like the Australian Lawyers Alliance and Future Women. Transferable skills is so needed in this ever-changing world, and rarely do we stay on the same path. So today I want to talk with Antoinette about what keeps us not just employable, but impactful. Antoinette, you've reinvented your career more than once, from managing legislative business change to founding benchmark experts. What are the core skills that transferred across these transitions?
Thanks, Kerryn. I think certainly hard work, really hard work, which comes with an ethic, which I think you're born with and you certainly develop. And I think it comes from your lineage, if you like, through your parents. Both of mine were pretty hard workers, my mother in particular. So the core value is your want to be able to get on and improve a skill in a different sector. I also think it's the excitement and the impetus that goes with that excitement of launching into a new career. So for me, there were kind of three main careers, and that legislative job was actually on a federal minister's staff, and then in opposition. And I had about 10 years all up working in Parliament House in both Canberra and in New South Wales. So it's that capacity, the want to change, and you're ready for it, but you're also open to new skills and learning. That's what does it for you.
I think so, and I think we can't afford to not keep learning, particularly with AI advancing all the time. We really do need to stay on top of what's happening around in our industry and in the world, I believe.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think people underestimate about their own abilities to pivot or evolve professionally?
I think with women in particular, it's a common thread of the imposter syndrome. Perhaps we're not good enough. We haven't got the confidence to naturally, it doesn't come naturally, that confidence, to be able to say, I've got this. But when someone congratulates you on a job well done, it really makes the difference, because suddenly you realize you have been able to adapt to this new skill and you are able to manage that change. So I think there's a fear. I think there's a fear of reluctance. There's also, I think, a fear of knockback and incompetence. But get going with it. Put your best foot forward and start producing. And that's where you'll get the accolades from. And with the accolades builds the self-confidence. Simple as that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I talk to my clients a lot about starting with that courage and confidence and just going forward, because it's sort of like a muscle, I think, that you realize, oh, I can do that, and then you can move on more easily.
Yeah, yeah.
How did mindset and self-honesty play a role in when you needed to make significant career choices along the way?
Well, of course, as you're younger, it's a little bit easier, I think, because you kind of got the energy that goes with it. And I was very fortunate because I had a political career. I also had a career in hotels, and this career, this current one, being my own business. Now, the political one was, I was very fortunate because through the capacity to want to help, not overdo it, not be too hustling at it, but I was in a situation in the Commonwealth Public Service where the fellow who ended up interviewed me over the phone. We'd never met. And he said, look, you're so good. If I ring up there after 5 o'clock at night and I'm able to ask you if you can produce something and send it across to the minister's office. And in those days, it was by those very old-fashioned fax machines where you had to dial a phone. You had to wait for the person at the other end, which in those days was about 20 minutes drive away from where the office that I was in was. And then they'd say, yes, go. And then you'd put the paper in and it'd end up in the minister's office in Parliament House, Canberra. So because I was just there to do it, and everyone else around me had just gone home because the public service had and still has this flexi time, they'd just buzz off at 10 minutes to 5. And so there I'd be, and the phone would ring, and I'd kind of got to know that that would be the minister's office. So what I'd do, I'd get up and I'd put the paper in and off it'd go. And he just remembered that. So he rang this day to say, look, we've got a minister's office, which he was being promoted to, and we've got no one to sort of run the office. So he said, would you consider that? I said, sure. So we had to describe what each looked like in the old King's Hall in Parliament House. The first one, which was built in 1927, we met. We had our first interview, and he said, I'm going to take you round to meet the minister. And so I went with an open mind, and I thought, this is great. I think I'm going to love this job. And then as he walked me out of Parliament House, you've always got to be accompanied, then he said to me, oh, you won't necessarily get the job. So just understand there's 4 other candidates up against you. Oh, I said, but then I had an open mind, and I thought, if it's meant to be, it'll be, and that's that. And I did get the job, and I was thrilled. So I was there another 10 years, which was fantastic through government and opposition. Big learning curve, but massive gratification.
Yes, I was just talking at an event last week about the absolute need to seize opportunities when they're in front of you. And, there's a great quote by Christopher Grosso, which is opportunities don't happen. Basically you make them happen. So you need to be aware of what's out there and go for it. Have the confidence to give it a try.
Yeah. That's right. I'll just give you another little tip too, that my other major career job was in hotels. Now, I was given an opportunity there to be introduced to the managing director of the Australian operation. 6 times I tried to get in front of that man, and he was always away. If he wasn't away, he was too busy with opening hotels in Australia, and he just didn't have the time. In the end, it was his executive assistant that I pleaded to. I said, I need 10 minutes in front of him, and I know that I can sell myself and my skills in order to get this job. And it was after a long political career, and I just decided I didn't have any political aspirations. So that was kind of the end of that chapter, and it was time to move on. And I knew I could do this. Now, eventually, I got in front of that man, but 6 times it took me. So for me, I couldn't afford to wait for him to come to me, because that wasn't going to happen. I got in front of him. He brought in the group operations bloke, and the 3 of us had the interview together, and he created a position for me. So that's the strength. That's the strength of knocking on a door and not giving up and saying, I believe I'm worth an interview. And if you don't get the job, you don't get the job. But it's that persistence. It's not an annoyance, it's persistence, because they've got a need and you know that you can fill that need. And that's how I got that second job in hotels. And I travelled Australia, Asia with that group. So it was great. It was lots of hard work too. They've all been really hard work and long hours and hard yakka. But boy, have they been gratifying. Yep.
Yeah, so I think if you have the confidence to start that conversation and to work through the pathway to the person you want to speak to, we had a member ring us, probably 2 years ago, to say that he had got his dream job, and he had called on the skills that he'd learned at our business community to basically do what you just did and put together a proposal why this company should employ him and what he could bring to the fore. And they were a company that were based in another state. And he managed to show that he had what they needed to open in Melbourne. So there really is a lot of encouragement. No, there a lot of examples. You're drifting in and out just at the beginning of a sentence, which is really funny. Yeah, it's really worth putting out there. What have you got to lose, basically?
Yes, that's right. Exactly. You've got to think that way. What have you got to lose? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really funny when you start speaking for the first 3 words, it's really funny, and then it comes on. So I can't see you at the minute because I've got my notes in front of me. So I don't know if you
Sure.
moved or what. Anyway.
No, staying still.
So you also help women, particularly women with financial change. And what inspired you to focus on that space?
Yeah. So we had a very big multi-million-dollar turnover business, and it was in the area of workers' comp. The law changed in New South Wales around that space, and that meant we had to shed 17 staff in one practice and about the same in another. And we had a whole lot of expert witnesses that provided assessments for these workers' comp claimants. All of that had to go because suddenly the law changed that, and whole floors of barristers' chambers were vacated as well because Bob Carr was the Premier at the time in New South Wales, and he just said, right, that's the end of it. So it all had to do with the now evolved I Care Commission, where workers' comp it used to be called, and it meant that people with real needs for compensation couldn't get it anymore. And what has happened as a result is that they've lined the coffers of the insurance companies because everyone's still got to pay their eye care. I've just paid mine or their workers' comp. But real people with real injuries aren't getting it. So that wiped us out. That meant that business had to close. It deteriorated down to nothing. And we had a lot of people with, in jobs that had to go and find other work, and it was a nightmare. So for us, we had to sell our home and an investment property because it was too difficult to be able to keep the income stopped and you couldn't keep the payments up. And so it was very quick, vast change, and it came straight out of left field with very little notice. And anyone involved in that space at that time will tell you that. So I really had to step up. I had 2 kids at primary school and private school. I had to step up and take over. And it was my husband who suggested that I take over the business that I run now, because he said the lawyers want it, and a lot of the doctors are reluctant to sort of speak out against other doctors. So what I do now is I work on the plaintiff side of the law, which is providing expert witnesses for the victims of personal injury. So that can be medical negligence through surgery, but it can also be motor vehicle accident cases, slipovers, all sorts of things where people are injured, and they take a claim to a lawyer because they don't believe that it was warranted. And of course, the outcome with medical negligence, they're worse when they come out of surgery than before they went in. So that's the key indicator, and there's a lot of work in that area. So I've worked with one firm for over 20 years, and most of my others I just retained. So I've got a lot of repeat business in that space, and that is why I wrote the book, and that is why I public speak on it, because I say to women, it's never too late. Don't think it's too late to start up another business or to change your career if you're in corporate. It's never too late, and never ever think that you don't need new skills, that you can't gain new skills, that you're not good enough to get new skills and pass tests or whatever you have to do, because it's terribly important to know that whilst you're on this earth and you're well and you're capable, you are very capable of doing things that might put you into a totally different workspace or into a business you didn't think you could ever create.
That's right. And I've had this conversation so many times because at one period in my life, I was a teacher, and teachers have so many transferable skills and don't necessarily recognize the fact.
That's right.
And just yesterday, I was listening on the radio on the ABC, and they were talking about retirement, and a woman rang in and said that her husband was a plasterer. But he actually, his health was starting to fail, and he was in his mid-60s, and he, wasn't sure how he was going to keep working till he was 70. And the conversation was, well, he could become a mentor to plasterers. So there is always a way to transfer your skills to do something else and to keep contributing, because I think we have such a long life if we're lucky and healthy, that it is wonderful if you're so needing to or wanting to to find an avenue.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so true. And I had a conversation with a friend just an hour ago. If you've got that capacity physically and mentally, and you've got the impetus to keep going, don't retire when you turn 80. There's some very, very brisk and spirited 80-year-olds, and they've got a lot to offer. So you do keep going. You keep going until you decide, or your budget decides that you can have a different life, But if you've got change, change comes in out of left field at any time in your life, that definitely impacts economically. There is no question.
Absolutely. My mother actually worked till she was 77, and she left my husband in the, she left my father in the 70s, and she became the breadwinner, and she used her strength in sales to sell cars, to sell advertising space, to become a public advocate's assistant for funerals. And she loved her work. She loved communicating, but she also needed the financial input as well. So, Antoinette, in your experience, what are the biggest barriers women face when it comes to making financially confident decisions?
I think because historically so much has been left to our men folk. And there's still women around. I know a woman who suddenly lost her husband, and she said, I haven't got a clue. I don't know where anything is. I don't know how to transfer money. People used to talk about checkbooks. Well, there's not much of that around anymore either. So it's not a question of writing out a check. If you've got to transfer money through EFT, you've got to have the skills in order to do it. And I think there's kind of a little bit of reluctance there to pick up the tools and keep learning so that you can be in charge if you need to be. I also think it's terribly important that women have a responsibility for financial literacy, that we make sure we keep that skill up. You have to know what's going on. You have to make sure that every decision made in a partnership is a joint decision. Because if things go downhill, then you end up with it in your lap. It's not worth it. I mean, if you can't agree on it, you've got to compromise. That's what it's about. So I think it's kind of the too hard basket, and it's easier to leave the too hard basket to someone else. But that's not responsibility. That is shirking your financial responsibility, because so much has changed, and we need to be adept. We need to understand. We need to be able to read a balance sheet and all of those things. Now, the women in their own business do that naturally. That's kind of automatic, because you've got to be able to control the nuts and bolts financially in your business. But women who aren't in a business and might be home duties, or they just might be working in corporate and they don't have to worry about that sort of stuff. They just take a pay packet. There's a requirement there too. Absolutely, definitely, because terminal illness can interrupt, divorce can interrupt, financial change like we had can interrupt and interfere. You've got to be able to pick up the pieces. You have to.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to admit that I've forgotten how to actually use the machine at the bank, because I do everything EFT or use the credit card. And when I had to go and actually get some cash out, I had to ring my husband and say, I've forgotten how to do this. Like, it's just so embarrassing, but it's like, I can't remember. So
yeah, and they're changing all the time too. Their technology is changing because they're cutting back on processes. They're making us do a lot more ourselves, the banks.
That's right. And there's not somebody there, to help you really, or to talk you through, because they're reducing the size of their staff. So you really have to be very independent.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what role has community or mentorship played in your journey?
Look, community is very important to me. I've got a community at my gym with the girls. I've got community on Elevate with you and I, and 27 others that tend to hook up on a Tuesday every week, and then a greater community there. community through my work, and speaking and so forth, and various other social and local community things that I'm involved in as volunteer. It is frightfully important. You can't do it on your own, and you need not do it on your own. And I think one of the key things that I promote when I'm talking about this stuff is just to say, contract out anything that you can't manage yourself. And that includes talking to somebody with knowledge who can give you some advice, talking to somebody with knowledge who can help you make a decision and form an opinion, and somebody with knowledge who can take the burden off your shoulders, be it psychological or anything to do with headspace, because you can't sort that out on your own if you're going through a crook time. We all go through rough times. I think mentoring, I've been more of a mentor rather than a mentee, and I'm very happy to do that. But as a business person, as a female, we have in our Elevate program with our wonderful Janine, the people who the important people who in your life, who can be your promoter, who can be your butt kicker, and all of the other various categories. You need people there who can say to you, you can do it, you can come out of this. So that's kind of mentoring anyway. And a person who can say, no, let's get this right, let's get this down paper, let's get it worded properly, any of those things, or let's just get going. This is what we need to achieve within the next month. That's another form of mentoring, even though it might not be that official relationship. So the people who've got your back, the people you can contract out to, the people who can help you because it's their specialty against your specialty. So, I work with lawyers in this business of Benchmark, and I hire doctors in the main, medicos, to provide the expert witness reports. So the doctors will often say to me, oh, I'm no good at that stuff, I don't know what the lawyer wants. And I always say to him, look, you just tell me your medical opinion, because the lawyer then will fashion it from the legal end. So each person has their specialty, but each person can help the other one and bring the whole thing together to form a result. It's the same sort of thing with mentoring and menteeing. Being a mentee, I just don't think you should ever close those doors if you've got someone willing to help you, or you reach out. The only thing you shouldn't contract out is financial responsibility.
Sure. Anyone who is listening to this and is interested in mentorship, the first conversation in this second series was with Eric M., who is a data scientist, and he talked about the importance of mentorship and how he's benefited from it, and how he now is actively a mentor for people within his organisation. So I recommend people have a listen to that conversation if they haven't heard it already. So as the chair of the Performing Arts School and someone who works with young people, you're dealing with people of all ages, and intergenerational learning and adaptability is something that we can tap into, particularly when it comes to the digital space. So how has that played out for you with working with young people?
I'm very lucky because I see, as chairman of the board, we don't really get involved in the day-to-day operations, but we're invited into that space through the concerts and various things that they do at the college. And I, of course, work with the principal, and my team, my colleagues and I on the board work with the principal, but I tend to be the conduit, if you like. So I get to meet and know all the staff, and I get to see the performances. Now, in that college, we do ballet, we do music, we do musical theatre, we do drama, but we also have an elite tennis group. And our tennis players, as the elite tennis group, spend 50% of their day playing tennis and 50% of their day on academic stuff. So the thing about these young people is they've chosen a path before they come to that college. So they're not sitting in a classroom all day learning academic only. They're divided half and half in the main to their chosen stream. So they might do ballet for half the day. It sounds exhausting, but when you see those results, those kids have chosen what they want to learn. They do, oh, not another history lesson, that sort of stuff. And yet they still have those subjects. I mean, we have kids that only do academic. They might do a little bit of music, but most of their work is academic. But in the main, they do choose a stream, and that is the performing arts, and that can now include tennis. They are the most amazing group of kids because they are often taken from the college in Sydney straight to the London Ballet School, or they're taken to the Sydney Ballet School. We work in cahoots with the Sydney Ballet School. They're often taken straight to NIDA, the National Institute of Dramatic Art, or the various ones around the country. In Victoria, there's one, in WA, there's one, because they have chosen that field and because they are so good at it that they are then able to go straight on to their tertiary years and continue their study. And often they end up in the opera. Often they end up in the ballet on stage as ballerinas or ballet dancers or musical theatre kids. And others of them finish and go and do law. Others of them finish and do journalism. There's quite a few around. Nikki Webster, who was the famous girl in the Sydney Olympics in the year 2000, she was up in the sky on a rope. She was one of our students. Sarah Murdoch is another one of our alumni who was chose ballet, and then went on, because her brother actually talked her into it, to do modelling, and then had a stellar career as a model. So there's various things, but it's a path that they've chosen. Sometimes they'll swap, but not usually. Usually they'll stick with that performing arts path, and they're amazing young people. They're amazing because of their physical and their mental capacity. It's fantastic to see.
What an interesting life. I find people are just so fascinating. And it's one of the reasons why I have this podcast, because how come we are all so different? How come we choose to take these different pathways, or we zigzag through life? What turns someone to follow a trade, or to be a brain surgeon, or to be a ballet dancer, or to it just is absolutely incredible to me that we have the ability to have all these pathways open to us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I often call it the creative gene. I think there's a creative gene out there that some of these doctors that I talk to, you have a normal old conversation with them, and yet they're so talented. They just amaze me. Yeah.
And that's why I think conversations are so important, because you can, on a surface level, you can meet someone and they say they're a doctor. Or I have a friend who actually is a scientist, and she's involved with building genes for research projects and things like that. I'd never heard of that until I met her. But she has like an engineering brain, and has helped us sort of to construct a sunshade at our beach house, in a way that we would never have thought of, but at the surface level, you think he's a scientist. So, when you bother to get to know people and to dig deeper into through a conversation, what you can uncover is just so inspiring.
That's right.
If you could give one piece of advice to someone who's feeling stuck in their career or unsure what they should do next, what would it be, Antoinette?
I think that's one area where you go and talk to someone in the know. Get some business advice, or get some advice from somebody who can help you when you talk to them about the idea that you've got. I had someone years ago who came to me. He'd worked for the International Management Group, which is a massive company globally. And I actually suggested to him that he stay where he was, because we talked about the things that he didn't like, and we talked about the things that he thought he'd like to do. And the things that he didn't like were so small and so minimal that there was too much going for him in the capacity where he was. And he ended up climbing through the ladder through IMG and did extremely well out of it. So it worked. That worked for him. But if you can find somebody in your tribe, or even if you find somebody in your tribe who knows of another, you know, financial planners are good at this stuff, accountants are good at this stuff, because they know so many other types of businesses. When
Yes.
I wanted to move out of the political thing, I spoke to somebody who had his own business, and I had provided staff for him because I did a bit of headhunting in between. So providing staff for him, I got to know him really well. And he said to me, "You need to be in your own business." I said, "Yeah, but I don't know what. I don't know what. I don't know what." Now, he was a very successful businessman. He ended up losing everything, and then he started again, and he's quite a public figure now. But then I had no idea. Now, he really helped me pave the way there. And he gave me an introduction to the managing director of Radisson Hotels, which is when I went into hotels. He gave me that introduction that took me the 6 goes to get in for my interview. And I think because someone had given me a hand up, I really was determined to get in front of that managing director to get that interview. But it was by reaching out to say, "I think I'd like a change." So you go to someone who's in the know, or you go to someone who knows someone in the know. And it might take you 6 months to find the person, but there's always, by starting that process, kicking off that exercise, you'll come to somebody who's able to give you an ear and to help you and to say to you, "Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?" Like we kind of do in our Elevate sessions, where we, you know, might say, "Get on to so-and-so because she's really good in that space." It's by asking, it's by research, really, call it. That's what you do. You don't sit stuck in the mud. You don't say, "It's never going to happen. Someone's got to come and ask me," because it doesn't happen like that. You've just got to work hard, and you've got to put up with some knockbacks, and you've got to have patience to keep searching. But it'll
Yes.
happen. It does happen. It's amazing how
Yes.
quickly that stuff happens.
Yes, I encourage my clients to create an impact by being able to explore, excite, and expand themselves and
Yeah.
take up the opportunities. So, Antoinette, if you read my book, there's a chapter in there that is called Evolve and Inspire. And I thought it's also appropriate to choose one of the conversation cards from that chapter today for in the game. So, this is a different sort of question, really. It's probably on a
Great.
more personal level. What's been the most challenging place you've ever visited?
Probably the bank. Probably the bank, because I would say that might sound really funny, but that's one of those everydays that can make or break your day. You know, putting you through the hoops. If you need more money, oh, you know, let's have a look at your figures. Let's have a look at your balance sheet. Oh, what's your age? You know, oh, you're in your own business. Hell, all of this goes against you. Somebody, you know, my lawyer that I work with said to me one day, "Banks really want people who get a kind of a pay slip once a fortnight on the same Thursday every fortnight. And here's my income. This is it." They don't want to go, they don't want to work through balance sheets and profit and loss statements and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, that's an everyday, but I reckon for me, that's probably the biggest challenge. And
Yeah.
then getting, you know, they'll approve a loan or whatever, and then getting to the next part and getting things settled if you're buying a property. You know, they can really put you through your paces and make life very difficult. And you don't always hear back from them. That's an
Mm.
annoyance with them. You got to chase them up all the time. "Oh no, he's not here today. He's at another branch. They have to wait for him to come back tomorrow." And look, various stuff, but Yeah, I'd say that's probably one for me. In terms of other challenges, my work, there's always a challenge if I've got to find an expert who's really hard to get. I've just had to find a handwriting specialist and I've had to find a photographic specialist, and that's for a medical negligence case which concerns a baby and a baby's illness. So work that one out. So there's challenges like that. Those challenges are quite good. I don't mind those challenges. I think the frustrating and infuriating challenges where you think, oh, for goodness sake, just become efficient for once. You charge us enough in interest. Become efficient for once and work with me, not against me. Because banks do have rules and steps, and if you don't fit that mold, it's not all that easy for them, and they make your life really hard.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm just going to put the blind down. Just
Sure.
yeah, I love the questions, because you just never know what someone's going to say, whether they're
That's
going to talk
right.
about
Yeah.
somewhere they've been on an adventure, or whether they've tripped over in in a street or whatever. So
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
everybody has a different response, which is so insightful.
Yes, I think
yeah.
it's very clever, that question. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other questions that I've used in the past has been, what do you hope to do you've never done before? And one of my guests said, live in a lighthouse, because they wanted a 360-degree view of the world. So,
Wow,
Antoinette, how do people get in
creative.
contact? How do people get in contact with you?
Oh, look, fantastic, Kerryn. The best way for them to get in contact with me is probably by email. So it's info@antoinettecolbran.com.au, which is my name, and
Yes.
they can send me an email. That's probably the best way. I have a website, and that is antoinettecolbran.com.au, and they can go onto the website. They can purchase my book. They want to hear a story. This is a story, my story, and it's warts and all. And there's strategies in that book which helped me, and which I really formed in order to dig myself out and try and make life good again. That doesn't mean that life doesn't have further challenges. It certainly does. But it is a story. People, when they've read it, say, oh boy, I loved your book. It was just such a great story, because it's yours. It's your story. Women in particular love hearing about other women's stories. They really, really enjoy it. So there's that. But yeah, that or an email. I'm there to speak. I speak to senior school kids. I'm just about to do another round of that, years 10 to 12, but I do a lot in women's groups, because, women just want to hear what you've got to say, but they want to know how you solve it. And they like to hear that it's never too late, which is the emphasis that I really place on it, because whatever happens, you've got to work with it, because so much in life is out of our control, so much. And so the stuff we can't control, we've got to not spend too much oxygen on that. We've got to expend that oxygen on coming out of things, fixing things up, expansion, change, diversity, whatever it might be. These are the important messages.
Wonderful. I'll put the details of your book, Great Handbag, Don't Forget Your Briefcase, in the show notes. So thank you for
Fantastic,
today's
Kerryn.
conversation. It really is a reminder that our skills are not static and they grow with us, and that our mindset, financial influence, financial fluency, and the courage to pivot are learnable at any stage of our life. Antoinette, do you have a closing quote for us?
Yes, I like a lot of Eleanor Roosevelt's quotes. There's one quote I really do like, and it's this: a woman is like a tea bag. You never, ever know how strong she is until she gets into hot water. That is a simple quote. I think it just says so much about us. There's a lot of quotes, and I love quotes, but I think that's a really, really good one, because it's simplicity, and we know how good we are. We're pioneers. We can have kids and grow families and help with other kids, and fix up colds. And
Yeah.
I think we have an amazing capacity to take on a lot as women. And we are a bit guilty of burnout. But I think, again, by getting advice on that stuff and knowing you don't have to do everything at once. There's one other quote that really annoys me, Kerryn, and it's this one. When people say, you can have it, and you can have it all, and you can have it all at once. Now, that's just quite silly. You can't, and you shouldn't want that. You don't want that. So
No.
you set yourself up so you've got a balanced life. And if you have to work a little harder at some stage, sure, that's how it's going to be, and that's what you need to do. But you've also got to have that downtime, and the downtime it's critical. It's not just nice to have, it's critical, because we need to be able to push on and do things and accept change and work through change and want other change because we've chosen that option.
And we are role models for our daughters and
Yeah.
our granddaughters. And I think that women have made great inroads, but there's still a long way to go. So thank you very much for the conversation today. It's been great to get to know you a bit more. And thank you for your time. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Kerryn. I've really enjoyed it. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.